Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between the legendary warriors who are Stormrunner, leading the force of Chaos, up against King of the Woods and his Norscan legions. A little disappointed King of the Woods isn't bringing Orion, but of course, we can't all have the benefit of such a legendary warrior. But nonetheless, he shall be bringing Wulfric the Wanderer, who I'm sure will be up to the task. Now, in the Chaos versus Norsca matchup, and as their factions as a whole, I think there is one type of unit which stands out above the rest in its importance. And this can go for many factions in the entirety of the game of Total War Warhammer, and that is going to be Skirmish Cavalry. Skirmish Cavalry, in my humble little duck opinion, is the best and most powerful type of unit in the entire game in current meta. The ability to move very fast around the battlefield, damage key targets, large single entity monsters, expensive units, and also be able to dodge magic and range and other such abilities, I think makes Skirmish Cavalry the most powerful it has ever been. And it is pretty scary for sure. In some matchups, Norsca and Chaos, who lack artillery, handgunners, and other such long-range armor piercing, these troops become invaluable and an absolute must. And I think that is the same when coming to blows up against each other, because they're both pretty good in melee infantry as far as foot troops go, although I'd say Chaos has a slight edge, and they're both very good with large dinosaurs, though Norsca has a slight edge there. So it also comes down to how does your Skirmish Cavalry perform. Now, for the force of Chaos, we have two Marauder Horsemen over on this left-hand flank, supported by some Horse Masters as well as Chaos Warhounds with poison, and it looks like a similar situation is happening over there on the far right-hand side, with some more Warhounds in deep reserve lurking behind the enemy build. For the main battle line, we have Chaos Marauders dotted all the way along, cheap, cheerful, and ready for a good old scrap, although they will lose in general to Norscan Marauders, who are slightly more buffed. We have double Chose with halberds to help deal with some of those large entities that can come into the main fight, whilst the skirmish battle is hopefully being won. Up in the skies, we have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Fire on the incredibly cool dual-headed Dragon of Chaos, coming in with the Burning Head, Flaming Sword of Rune, and Fireball. He's looking very fearsome indeed. Let's give him a little pat on the head to let him know we are friendly. For the forces of Norsca, they likewise do have some Horse Masters, but only the 2 units, so certainly outmatched so far in the skirmish contingent, with some more Marauder Horsemen with thrown axes, but still, with good micro, you can protect these guys and hopefully limit the damage that enemy skirmishers can do. For their main battle line, they've got Marauder Champions mixed in with the basic Marauders. The reason these Marauders are slightly better than the Chaos one, of course, is because of that rage mechanic. But I like this, mixing some of the elite troops in that central pocket, with great weapons as well, slightly further back. We also have some, let's have a little look, Famir Warriors. That's what they are. I was wondering if they were Trolls or Famir, but they are indeed Famir. So Famir Warriors coming in with great weapons, glorious armor sundering and magic damage, gives them quite a nice niche. And their forces are going to be led by a Shaman Sorcerer of Metal with Plague of Rust and Searing Doom, 2 of the competitive spells from that toolset, as well as Wulfric the Wanderer looking for blood, glory, and perhaps even Valhalla on his flaming steed, coming in with the Sword of Torgold, which I think is very powerful, not quite so good when he's on his mammoth, but really nice on horseback, coming with Hunter of Champions, Fight or Die, as well as the Sea Fang. So without further ado, let's get this battle underway, and you can already see these skirmish horsemen are trading blows a little bit here. Horse Masters will be slightly better. Jan, your basic horseman, managed to try to juke some of the enemy range, and it looks like so far the Norscans do have the upper hand, but of course they can't really afford to lose that many troops because they're so heavily outnumbered, and the Chaos Warhounds are on the approach, pushing the horsemen together and sealing the trap, with more Warhounds pushing from the back, and from the right hand side we have even more cavalry. In the main battle line, Marauders have clattered into Marauders, and you'll see across the board the Norscans faring relatively well, but in the back lines this is some scary situation as those Warhounds really starting to pound in on top of the Horse Masters, who do have to turn and engage. Famir War has been sent back to try and aid their allies there, but that is some pretty scary stuff. Chosen are deciding to flee, it would seem, from the Marauder Champions with great weapons. Not a bad idea whatsoever. And a big boat is coming down the line, butchering a ton of Horsemen and Horse Masters, and a Searing Doom on the far side. Though it looks like they are going to be able to dodge it. In the central force, the Norscan horse is not doing terribly badly. 2 units have been dealt with at the moment. They did manage to push back a ton of enemy cavalry and Warhounds, but they will all be rallying to the main fight, and a huge burning head goes down the line, roasting Marauder Champions and basic Marauders, all of a sudden making that infantry fight a little bit more fair, as the Norscans did basically overwhelm the Chaos forces for the most part. Looks like we're getting a Plague of Rust come down on these Chosen. That's going to allow the Marauder Champions to really start to chew through them. Nice attack here by the Chaos Sorcerer Lord using good micro and battlefield awareness just to see, okay, my troops are struggling on this side, but there's nothing to support my opponent's Marauders, so we're going to crash down with our Gigantic Dragon and finish them off for good. In the back lines, it looks like the skirmish game has been completely won now by the Warriors of Chaos, who are pouring fire onto these poor Famir Warriors, who are just taking huge damage here. They're even starting to get a little low on morale as more Warhounds do bound in on top of them. Big fat Searing Doom comes down, a tiny bit of friendly fire, but mainly catching the Chosen. Looks like all of the Norscan forces were moving away there. Good play so far by Norsca, but a big breath attack comes in, whacking at that Shaman Sorcerer, is also breaking off the Chosen, but looks like an assassination attempt as the Battle of the Wizards does start to come to fruition. But Wulfric's nearby, and just because he's on his horse doesn't mean that he won't hit you like an absolute truck. 100 champions going down on that Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Needs to be careful. Look at that health just chunk down. A load of angry Vikings chasing away the big beastie. But a beautifully timed Burning Head should enable the Sorcerer Lord to get back up in the skies, even if it is at the cost of a few Chosen getting finished off here. Famir Warriors are just getting dragged down by the mass amount of Horse Masters and Horsemen, and they have a huge amount of ammunition left. In the distance, we do somehow have some more Marauder Horsemen returning to the field, charging onto Chaos Marauders. Should be able to overwhelm them, but if they get anywhere near close, they're simply going to get out-skirmished, and the Famir Warriors are now running for their lives. Norsca have formed a Wrecking Ball, which tends to happen in these type of games when you lose the Skirmish Cavalry fight. You have to just form this big old unbeatable rock and try to punch your enemy to death, accepting that you're going to take a ton of damage from the Horsemen coming in. And a beautiful boat is going to be coming down the line. Oh, it looks like the Chaos Blade attempts to dodge, but it manages to catch quite a few of them, doing some really nice damage. Some good Searing Dooms coming in here would be quite tasty, but look at that fire pouring in on top of the champions. It looks like Moras are nearly breaking, running for their lives, and a big disgusting breath attack comes in by that Chaos Sorcerer Lord, up to 137 kills, as the Chosen are being used as a anvil to pin in the Norscan forces, and a Burning Head shall follow up. This is disgusting. Fighter Die is popped, keeping the Norscan Warriors going and really wrecking their way through these Chosen, but that is a disgusting cast, and the Horsemen, there is nothing left to really threaten them, and they're just doing unbelievable amounts of damage here. The majority of the Norscan forces seem to be crumbling. Marauder champions both are breaking, but likewise so are the Chosen with halberds. A beautifully cast Searing Doom comes down, clattering those horsemen, doing big damage, but I think it's a little bit too little, too late. Balance power is very, very against Norsca now, but as long as Wulfric the Wanderer stands, there is always hope. Coming in here, slapping that Chaos Sorcerer Lord up. 100 champions goes down, and that is some massive damage coming in. Looks like Warhounds are having to be forced to commit to the fight. A fight they're no doubt going to lose up against Wulfric, but as long as it allows the Sorcerer Lord to escape, particularly while 100 champions is active, it is a worthwhile endeavour for those doggos. Horsemen are now dealing with some scraps coming back to the fray, and that's a beautiful thing about Skirmish Cavalry in general. It's so rapid and fast that even if you're out of ammunition, you can still be very useful to the army by cycle charging or chasing down routing troops, running them down and stopping them from coming back into the battlefield. Marauders are dealt a final blow as Wulfric is the last Viking standing, and he is not going out with a bit of a scrap, slicing that blade left and right, cutting down many a doggo as the poor Chaos Warhounds, I say poor Chaos Warhounds, they're kind of evil, but, you know, what is evil, I suppose. And they are starting to break, as more Horse Masters do now commit themselves to the fight, but Wulfric's actually going pretty strong here, which is kind of scary, and there is some Marauder champions coming back to the fray. Likewise, the Shaman Sorcerer has emerged once more, but a big fat breath attack comes down on Wulfric, looking to shatter him just as a Searing Doom was coming in to do some nice damage, sending him off with a Viking burial. That was a Pyrrhic victory for sure. The majority of both forces just obliterated. Luckily, though, for the Warriors of Chaos, they still had a relatively healthy skirmish contingent, plus, of course, the big, scary dragon. Very well played to Stormrunner, very well played to King of the Woods. We will get through the damage value and damage dealt in just a second, because as you can see, Jesus, there is some pretty big scores across the board, I'm sure, for both sides. But if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a fat thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, for more glorious Total War Warhammer content coming out every single day. There are links down below in the description to my Nexus account, where you can support me by buying games off Steam through there. We have all the Warhammer games, a ton of games, in fact, in general. There's also links down below to my Patreon, where you can support the channel. and my Discord, where you can submit replays, get involved in the tournament scene, and all that good stuff. Apologies there for the sirens outside my window. I do live right next to a hospital as well as a police station, and I can hear them pretty loudly screeching by, so hopefully that's not too loud for you guys on your end. Apologise to people who are wearing headphones. Feel free to comment down below as well. What was your favourite moment? Who was your MVP? Feel free just to yell quack at me. Do whatever you like. And yeah, I always do enjoy reading those comments. But now, on to the good stuff. Skirmish Cavalry and the damage value. So, as we said before, 4,057 damage value, 26,000 damage dealt, and 167 kills. This sorcerer, not actually my MVP, but certainly up there very, very close. My MVPs were going to be the Skirmish Cavalry contingent. Horse Masters, 650 damage value, 1,000 on this unit, 446, 622, 450, 500, all getting relatively solid value. Marauders across the board as well, basically getting slaughtered, but that is expected when you come up against Norsca. It's just more bodies to throw on the line. The Chosen Halberds formed really poorly, 478 damage value on this unit, 982, no large mammoths and other such units that you can really stomp, but I think it is pretty important to bring such units as the Chosen with Halberds in this matchup, because for example, my Norsca build against Chaos does involve Frog and 2 Feral Mammoths, so it's always good to be prepared. Warhammer did a good job just escorting the Skirmish Cavalry and ensuring that they could win quickly and decisively, because if you bring 5, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 Skirmish Cavalry, in fact, now I can count, up against 3, that still is a battle which could go on for a very long time, but you could see he pushed the enemy Skirmish Cavalry into a trap where they would have to commit to a fight. King of the Woods did a really good idea of bringing back the Familiar Warriors to try to support the combat element, at least, of that battle and break through the enemy as much as possible. But alas, it was for naught. Despite this, the enemy Skirmish Cav didn't really get much damage value at all. 400 here, 400 pretty much again, 120, nothing too insane. What went really well for Norsca was that frontline engagement. 800 damage value on some of the Marauder champions, 600 on the other one, and the champions across the board performed pretty poorly for their cost value, but certainly managed to chew their way through the enemy infantry rather quickly. Shaman Sorcerer of Metal, definitely an MVP for Norsca, 1,600 damage value, with some really lovely Searing Dooms. Early on though, when one side got absolutely whacked by the boat, I've loved to have seen the Searing Doom use on that blob as well to try and break off half of the enemy Skirmish Cavalry in one go. Perhaps then he could have chased them down and sorted them out for good. Wolfwick the Wanderer, always a pleasure to see him on horseback rather than his mammoth, because he actually gets to swing his blade for once, getting nearly 2,000 damage value, 1,933, and nearly 9,000 damage dealt. Certainly put a good old smile on my Viking-loving face. Hope you guys enjoyed. This was a pretty awesome one, and until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.